Ever since film was created, there has been a fascination of Indigenous people in media. For the first time with film, the wider public could see Indigenous people. In America, there was a growing interest in the Wild West, and people's thought of manifest destiny and that this is our land, we should take it. And beside this, at the same time, stereotypes were forming in media of Indigenous people. For example, Buffalo Bills, he had shows depicting portrayal of Indigenous people as savages and terrorizing people. This includes scenes of wagon ambushes, etc. These early films as well depicted Indigenous people with little clothing and the stereotypical beads and feathers. As history of the films continued, a renewed interest in Indigenous media began with the explosion of Westerns in the public eyes, and Indigenous were often portrayed in a negative antagonist light, such as John Ford's 1956 movie The Searchers, in which the quote-unquote Indians came and attacked a family of settlers for no particular reason and kidnapped the daughter. This film, along with many more in the area, helped to cement the stereotypes of Indigenous people being savages and bloodthirsty, as well as the common portrayal that all Indigenous groups look the same. This included, of course, the teepee, the beads, and this, of course, is not true everywhere. And this continued until later on in the 1970s, when movies such as the film by Arthur Penn, Little Big Man, and it's with its ideas that the stereotype of the noble savage or the wise elder. And this is seen in the character Old Skin Lodge, who is depicted as the stereotypical wise elder who is the spiritual leader and can guide. And then you have a movie like The Last of the Mohicans, where you have the stereotype of the dying Indian, where they're a quote-unquote dying off. These media portrayals have been quite negative and they're quite alarming. Yeah, there has been work done in the more recent time to combat this in media. However, there's still work to be done to combat this. And yeah, for this project, I thought, what is better to understand Indigenous people than going to Indigenous communities firsthand to combat this? Before taking this course, I had an opportunity to go up north to Nemska, Quebec as a camp counselor for young children. So after choosing this course and knowing I had plans on coming up here, I thought I'd showcase my inner Spielberg and create a short video for this assignment. As I've already said and said it with these stereotypes of Indigenous people, they're carried out in a lot of media and often have negative representations of the individuals, groups they showcase. And they show many negative things such as the stereotype of substance abuse and other problems, and that they're poor, etc. Not to mention the lack of coverage in communities in the news. And it's not my goal to deeply know the culture, as that's impossible in that time. I just merely want to explore this new culture and spend time firsthand learning about it, and just see the wrong things that they show in the media, and kind of judge that compared to the stereotypes that the media has set up. And I just thought, what would be better with me going up there as a volunteer for me to explore it and see. So it's a 16-hour trip up north to the Cree Nation of Nemska, and yeah, it'll be cool from my understanding of Indigenous in the past that I didn't have a long experiences with them up north and Indigenous communities in general. So this will be nice to be enveloped by the culture of it and see, kind of find find the stereotypes and try to show you that they're not correct.
For this trip, I'll be traveling over 1,000 kilometers north of Peterborough to Nemska, which is actually the location of the Grand Council of the Crees. Further, it lies on the land of the James Bay and Northern Quebec Agreement, which actually, cool enough, is the first modern treaty and land agreement signed in 1975. This would, I would find out, would make a big difference on the trip, and yeah, it was the first thing that really challenged stereotypes on my trip. As the nation of Nemska signed it really early on, this allowed the area to prosper and build good relations with Hydro-Quebec and the province of Quebec. And yeah, this allowed for big sums of money to be given to the community. And I noticed the community was much better off than the stereotypes led me to believe, such as the ones of Indigenous groups being poor, and of course the ones that say that they live nomadically. In fact, this community had lots of investment, such as the youth center and the amazing recreation center with a workout room, pool, arena, and bowling alley. Another stereotype that seems to be shown in media a lot is the fact that only the traditional, like hunting, fishing, and living on the land really counts to being native. This, however, can be important in certain seasons. It does not match modern-day Nemska and the families that live much closer to each other on streets, just like south in Canada. Another, we went to a place called Old Nemska where many have cabins, and this is a place where traditional meets modern. So it was quite cool seeing the modern generators powering the cabins, but also traditional beating and the fish smoking, etc. And this really gets rid of the fact of, just like in The Last of the Mohicans, of the dying quote-unquote Indian, and it just shows how they're like a modern people. And it's just really amazing to see how the two of them mix quite well there.
And as my short reflection for my experience, I would first like to mention how refreshing it was culturally to go from mostly just hearing certain politicized and mostly negative things about Indigenous people to a community of real people, and not just, seeing them in real life, in the real thing. It was good to understand and learn the individual culture more, and to cement the idea of individual nations and not just the media version of a big conglomerate, that all Indigenous people are the same. In fact, the Cree people even have different dialects in between them. So in Nemska will be different than way out on the prairie Cree. In addition, stereotyping of Indigenous people being poor, that was thoroughly wrong up there, as you saw in my pictures, with my pictures, as the community's well off, with some kids even showing up to, Indigenous kids showing up to the camp in even clothes like Adidas, Jordans, Nike. And I thought, like I just mentioned about the beautiful mix of the modern technology and the traditional, like the smoking of the fish, the generators, the power, the cabins. I thought it was really cool to see them both. Also, many of these northern communities get forgotten in media. Before going on this trip, I never heard of Nemska. I feel people should go up to these communities and get to meet the real people. And this is a way that, this is an educational experience and can help to fight negative stereotypes and build bridges between people.
And yeah, so that is all for my presentation. And thank you very much for watching, and have a good day.